Merry August, spooks! Welcome to the newsroom, also known as my undecorated dining room. Okay, I have tried to get a decorator in. I don't wish to do it myself. You know, we renovated this whole house, it took a year. If I can avoid looking at a paintbrush or a sander ever again, I will be happy. But around here, decorators don't have availability until Christmas. So I might just have to do it myself. Or you might have to look at this wall where I have just shoved paper up on it to make it look vaguely interesting for a few months. Can you see the kitchen? You can see the kitchen. That's also not decorated. It's not finished. We have no plinth boards. If you could just not look behind me, that would be great. Thank you so much. If I could blur my background, just know that I would. But right now we're working on an ancient iPhone, okay? I don't have a camera. I wish I did. Maybe one day. Right now, ancient iPhone it is. We cannot blur the background. So, what we're actually here to talk about is the fact that we have completed July. It is the 1st of August as I speak. It is, yes, can confirm. And I completed my TBR game for the month. I read 5 books, 4 of which are in front of me. Let's get to the stats. In the month of July, I read 5 books, 4 of which were physical books, and are right in front of me right now, one of which was an audiobook. In total, I read 1,647 pages, which is a pretty good reading month for me, average to pretty good, and I listened to 11 hours and 7 minutes of audiobooks. That is not that impressive for me. Usually I'm racking up 30 hours or so of audiobooks, so obviously I favoured reading physically rather than audiobooking. That surprises me, because usually I love an audiobook. And I've been going on extra walks this month, so I don't know what happened there, but you know, the stats and the hips don't lie. My most popular genre of July was fantasy. Who is she? Not only fantasy, but it's not romantasy. I don't think I can call it romantasy. I think that's a very different genre. But fantasy romance. We'll call it fantasy romance, that feels fair. I think because they were witchy romances, it's very hard to label them fantasy because it is fantasy. But I don't know whether it's my own brain saying that when I hear fantasy, I think dragons. But that's not the only genre of fantasy. So I read a few witchy books, basically, is what I'm telling you, okay? Okay. This has been a terrible start. Of those 5 books, my average star rating was 3.8. And I think that's pretty good. I don't think I had anything rated less than 3 stars. A winner in my eyes. Let's get into the good stuff though. I'm going to go in order of which I read them, which means you are first. First up, in the month of July, I read Clytemnestra by Costanza Casati, and I read this very quickly at the beginning of the month because I was meeting the author at a Waterstones event, so I had to read it quite quickly. What did you think of the book? So, as with every book review ever, these opinions are my own. No bumholes on the internet, please. Mario. These opinions are my own, naturally, and also maybe Mario's. So there are some storytelling techniques used in this book that I don't particularly like, which brought my rating down. So I rated this book a 3.5 stars, which for a Greek mythology book is quite low for me. 3.5 stars is still a very respectable score. That is, this book was good to very good, but didn't quite get to the 4-star mark because of the following reasons. So first off, more of an FYI PSA, this requires quite intermediate mythology knowledge, I think. I studied Greek mythology at university and would classify myself as a mythology girly, albeit with a very bad memory. But once that memory is refreshed, I know some stuff, okay? I know some stuff. However, I did keep having to check the glossary as to who was who, because there are a lot of names mentioned up front. Could you scratch elsewhere, sir? And I did keep having to flip back and forth and remind myself who was who. So if you were not an intermediate mythology reader, I think this would be a bit of a struggle. So just a PSA going forwards if you wish to read. So number one personal gripe that I don't particularly enjoy is as the story progressed, the dialogue increased exponentially. There was so much dialogue and not a lot of description, and I personally just don't like that. I like a lot of description, minimal dialogue. Again, as I said, that's a very personal opinion, as are all opinions, but that's just something I don't particularly like in a story. The descriptions of women focused a lot on their hair, like their hair color, their hairstyle, what their hair was doing. There is so much betrayal and secrecy in this story. I want to know more about the characters' subtle expressions, the telltale signs of their body language. I felt that would be a much more interesting character description than their hair was golden and glowing. That's not a direct quote, but do you know what I mean? Thirdly, I just don't like an epistolary format. I hate that word. That's so hard to say. Epistolary? Letters. I don't like letters in my story. I find it to be quite an obvious way to tell the story. I want to see what's happening. I don't want to hear about it through a letter after the fact. That's just my personal gripe. Like when a tail goes in your mouth when you're trying to talk, you know? Those sort of gripes. My biggest gripe though, and I did like this book, may I just say, I'm just getting my gripes out of the way first before we praise. My biggest gripe was that this book is filled to the brim with similes. In so many passages of writing where a metaphor would have worked better, the author chose to use a simile, and it took me out of the story because it just feels a little bit like it's a technique used more in children's books or preteen or YA. I wouldn't expect it from an adult mythology book. I do appreciate that retelling a mythological story is no mean feat. Like, that is not easy. You're taking a story that already exists and trying to make it fresh and new. That is so difficult. So I think I expect and heavily rely upon the story being written beautifully because I already know the plot. And unfortunately, I've just read much better ones, which is a shame, because I met the author and she was a enigmatic, charismatic, fantastic speaker. She really engaged the crowd. She was so delightful to listen to, but it just didn't quite translate onto the book for me. To be fair, the injustice of Clytemnestra and the way the pain and anguish was written brought me to tears. Or, you know, the left eye waters, the classic. She writes pain very well, and obviously all this pain leads to vengeance, and the vengeance was a little glossed over. I want to see that man suffer. I want to feel the pain. I want to read about the pain. I want to know detail by detail what happened to make him suffer. That bit was glossed a little bit, but the pain and anguish, very well written. It was visceral, it was tangible. You were feeling that pain with her. Okay. Clytemnestra, 3.5 stars. Okay. Next up in July, I read The House That Horror Built by Christina Henry. This is labelled as a horror, and I have some thoughts on that I will get to. First up, I rated this 3 stars, so it's my lowest rating of the month actually. And I have previously read Near the Bone by Christina Henry, and that was, I believe, labelled as a thriller, and it was thrilling. I loved that book. The problem with this book is I think that it was labelled incorrectly. I think the genre was more of a supernatural thriller / mystery rather than a horror. There was only maybe one part that was fitting for a horror, but I still think that would just be supernatural thriller. I am learning to appreciate a slow burn horror. This was definitely slow burn, but I don't think it's slow burn horror. For example, Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson. That was a very slow burn horror done extremely well and was accurate for the genre. This was good, it just wasn't a horror. And I feel like I find myself saying that a lot. Am I the problem? The story was captivating and I wanted to know what was going to happen. It felt mysterious, but not horrifying. It is a haunted house novel. I don't want to spoil it, so there will be absolutely no spoilers in this vlog, but it was more character driven than plot driven. But there is a haunted house, so if you like that kind of stuff, you might be interested. It also had kind of a colloquial style of narration, so it felt more like a friend was telling you the story or recounting the past rather than a narrator. And so it made for a very, very quick and easy read. A very strange thing that annoyed me throughout was there's a 14-year-old boy in this, and sometimes the way he speaks is very mature, and sometimes he sounds like a toddler. And I don't know many 14-year-old boys. In fact, I don't know any, and I don't know whether the author does either. I don't know which one of us is incorrect, so if you have a 14-year-old son, please let me know. But there were some parts where he would say, I am terribly wise. And he would say, you always act as though, and then call his mum out on things that she does that he's very perceptive over. He's very aware of her feelings and her emotions and her actions. So very aware. But then there was a scene where he's trying to get someone to come with him to go show him something. And he's like shyly tugging at his sleeve to pull him along. And it just made me feel like this is a toddler. I don't know what's happening. But correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know children, okay? I don't have them, I don't know many, and I could be wrong. 3 stars. Next up, I listened to A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon by Sarah Hawley, and I rated this again at 3.5 stars. Overall, this was just a sexy, fun, witchy time, and I enjoyed it. I listened to an audiobook as I was walking, as I said. Every time I went on a walk in the month of July, I just stuck this in, and giggling made me laugh out loud once, because I remember thinking, this is so embarrassing. I'm like walking through a town giggling, but if an audiobook can make me giggle, we're okay with the awkwardness. The only thing that bugged me on it, which is why it was brought down from a 4, is because there's a dual POV. And you know what? I fuck with a dual POV. We love to see that in romance. However, there was supposed to be a mystery around whether this demon was genuinely interested in the witch. I mean, there's no spoilers. The title is They Were Fake Dating. You know where that trope's going. So there was a mystery around whether he was genuinely interested in her or whether he was using the fact that she liked him to do evil means, okay? I won't give any spoilers. But the problem was we had his POV, so we knew what she didn't know. We knew that it was fine. We knew the answer to her worries. It would have been so much better for the suspense of the novel if we didn't have his POV until later maybe, but we had his POV right from the start, so we knew exactly what he was thinking. And it just took me a little bit away from the story. It gave me no suspense, which is nice because it was a romance where there was very little worry. I knew that it was all going to work out okay. Spoiler alert, it does. I think you can probably imagine that it works out okay from the cover and from the title. But yeah, that part just let it down a little bit. But still, 3.5 stars. On the par you go. Next up, in the month of July, I read The Honey Witch by Sydney J. Shields, and I rated this a very respectable 4 stars. I read this, I should have said that previously. I read this for my something witchy prompt. I also read Clytemnestra for my a 4-star plus ratings on Goodreads prompt. Okay, we're caught up now. So anyway, first of all, female male character, did I just say? Female main character bi rep, stunning, impeccable. I would want for nothing more, to be honest. In fact, the queer rep throughout the book was very well done, and there was a moment where, I'm trying to be very careful not to give you spoilers. The cat just came into the cat flap very dramatically. There's a moment where a character comes out to a parent, and it's very heartwarming because it is so not a big moment, although for the character probably is a very big moment. So I'm going to put that down because it's really heavy. The character basically is speaking with their parent, and the parent assumes that the character's friend, who is of the opposite gender, is their partner, and the character has to say, actually, my partner is this person who is of the same gender. And the parent's just like, okay, you deserve love, go get it. It's very not a big deal, which is so beautiful to see. Love it. It's also a coming out of a slightly older person. The character's not teenager, even young adult. I think they are maybe, I'm assuming, I don't know if we actually know, late 20s, early 30s. Am I back? Am I in roughly the same position? My mic died. It died. I had to leave the room and come back 10 minutes later. We don't have time for that. What was I saying? I was saying the stakes in this are very high, in fact. There is an ill-fated romance. That's it. There's an ill-fated romance where the fate is death. So this is life and death stakes, okay? There is bribery, there is corruption, there is betrayal, there is grieving. So this is a very high stakes, low fantasy wrapped in this beautiful package with beautiful words inside. And I highly recommend. And it was 4 stars. Okay, lastly, in the month of July, I finally read 6 of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. And I won't say too much about this, hi friend. Please put your bum away from the internet. I won't say too much about this book because I have a vlog coming out next week where I talk more about my thoughts on it, but I will say it was a 5-star read for me, and I immediately picked up the sequel. Like immediately. I am so deeply obsessed with the characters that I don't want to finish Crooked Kingdom too quickly because I don't want them to be out of my life. Okay, 5 stars. In my hands, in a haphazard chaos pile, I hold books that I finished in July, physical copies only. That was almost a mess. I had a pretty good reading month and I am looking forward to seeing what happens in August. I haven't yet filmed my TBR games, that video will be coming out in the next few days and I'm very excited to get started. But for now, thank you so much for watching and I'll catch you in a video very, very soon. Bye! Say bye! Okay, bye! Let me show you a place.